Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. I'm your host, Toku, from It's Toku TV on Twitch. It has been a long while, and Clan Collection 5 and 6 have already been out for quite some time, but I figured this is going to be a mainstay of the channel, so I've taken some time out of my failing job search to give you, the viewers, what you want. My based, red-pilled, and Replica takes on the new cards and supports for Clan Collections 5 and 6. Once again, we need to preface the video as well as the rest of the series by letting you know that these lists are made at face value using my skills of card evaluation. They will need playtesting to fine-tune, but I hope they will serve as a good reference point for filthy net deckers to piggyback off of. Welcome back to Clan Collection Cores. CCCCCC. These, 7 of them. That's the title. Honestly, I'm happy that the choice of support this time was for 7Cs, and it was pretty good support too for what it's worth. 7Cs is one of the few decks in V Premium that majorly chooses Protect 2 as their gift and plays an aggressive board-based strategy focusing on hitting anything to get a treasure marker. And once they get 6, they've reached their peak. Let's take a look at what CC6 gave 7Cs in this episode of CCC. Not necessarily the boss unit, but it is a very impactful unit for Grand Blue 7Cs now. We have 7Cs, Grudgeful Spectre, Come Dragon Voyage. On either circle, gains 3k for each 7C card in your drop and bind zone. And also on either circle, you can remove a treasure marker to choose up to 2 grade 2 or less units with 7Cs in the card names from drop and superior call them to rear. Finally, the common 7Cs effects. On either circle, when its unit attack hits anything, period, put a treasure marker onto a circle without a treasure marker. I only now just read the English name for Oguchi Voyage, and I refuse to call it that, so as of this video, it will forever be known as the Come Dragon. But yeah, Come Dragon gets pretty big. It's pretty huge. To remind people once again, Night Mist's main pop-off is when you have 6 treasure markers to restand your entire board, and then you get to restand these really big dragons which can also attack from the back row. That is what we look to end the game on. As for the second skill to superior call 2 units from the drop, this will probably only really come up when you know you will get the treasure marker back anyways on that turn. Otherwise, it's probably wiser to keep your treasure markers. The new grade 2 for 7Cs is Night Haze. When placed on either circle, counterblast 1 and add up to 1 7Cs to hand and discard the rest. And the second effect, the mutual 7Cs effect, on hit to get a treasure. This is pretty simple, pretty good. It hits a lot of requirements with that one counterblast, tutor and also mill. You get more 7Cs through the drop zone, namely Nightcrow. Finally, the third new card, though not a 7Cs card, it is the generic card for Grand Blue. King Serpent, a familiar face for those who played Night Rose back in G, was another method of gaining resources for the deck, and here we see something similar again. When placed on the rear circle by an ability, you can soul charge 1 and King Serpent gains 10k until the end of turn. And when retired from rear circle by your card's ability, if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, you can countercharge 1. I'm not a fan of the restriction that you can't have any face-up damage to get the countercharge, but it is nonetheless countercharge. I do like that this card can actually be played in any deck. Night Rose's auto hollow effect could proc the countercharge, Jesse the Ghosty could sack this off the board for a countercharge, and in 7Cs you can use Nightcrow to retire it for a countercharge if that was needed. New cards out of the way, let's introduce the 7Cs list. So one thing of note is the introduction of the 2 new 7Cs names. This is very important. Many decks in the game need to counterblast, so they will eventually need to take damage. Prior, when we ran the Good Stuff cards in Colombard and Greedshade, it gave the opponent opportunities to take damage and not give you treasure markers. But as you can see, we are playing a lot of 7Cs named. Starting from the top, we have 4 copies of our Captain in Night Mist. He is the one that enables our 7Cs to pop off, giving that extra power, the back row attack, anti-intercept, and finally the board restand. We have 4 copies of Come Dragon. This is our main beat stick once we get to the later stages of the game. The fundamental turn that I envision is we'll have our biggest attackers, 4 of the Come Dragon and 1 in Slash Shade, and hopefully we've already hit 6 times throughout the game for our 6 treasures to get the board restand. Speaking of Slash Shade, we run him at 4 copies as our main early game aggressor. The faster we get him onto a markered circle, be it Protect 2 or a treasure, the faster we can farm treasures with his large swings. The rest of the deck can be considered consistency boosters and defensive options. In Grade 2, we also run full playsets of Night Spinel and Night Haze, both cards that counterblast 1 and either superior call our attackers from the drop zone, or find our attackers from the top 5. In our very thin Grade 1 line, we run 4 copies of Rise Stutter. Apart from the common 7Cs effect, Reistuder gains intercept when there is a marker on its circle. Yes, you would need a marker on its circle before you can intercept from the back. Don't misplay. But Reistuder provides some 10k shield on board, maybe 20k even if you've put some Protect 2s on it. We also run a pair of Nightcrow. Besides the ability to gain markers, Nightcrow can swap itself from the drop zone for any other rearguard. This usually comes up in a pinch when you've been board removed turn after turn and all that's left in your hand are triggers. You can still at least get Nightcrows out onto the board and hopefully have some other names to fill the other circles. Finally, 4 copies of Nightrunner. Honestly, a big MVP of the deck. Nightrunner acts as a 5th to 8th copy of Cum Dragon and Slash Shade if they've been retired by being attacked into. Finally, the only non-7Cs card we run, 3 copies of Negrobone, which, to be honest, due to its effect, may as well be considered a 7Cs card. If Nightrunner would be the 5th to 8th copy of Cum Dragon, Negrobone would be the 9th to 11th copy of Cum Dragon, ensuring that you're always going to be able to present at least 1, if not 2 Cum Dragons every turn. Going into our trigger lineup, we've actually opted to go for 12 draw and 3 Helions. As our deck is very piece reliant and board reliant, we want to be able to dig for pieces, so maxing out on draws is very helpful. Most importantly, draw trigger means that when you hit on your Vanguard swing, you have no crits. Therefore, you're 1 hit and thus 1 treasure, giving them only 1 damage to play with rather than 2. So if they need a second counterblast, they would need to give you a second treasure. Since our fundamental turn is swinging with 8 attacks worth of PG, 2 Slash Shade swings, which is usually 2 triggers worth of guard, and the Vanguard swing, crit triggers are also not super needed to end the game that way. Helions actually get good value in our deck since our grade 3 turn onwards don't require counterblast to operate, so if we can get through grades 0 to 3 scot-free from being dicked down too hard, it gives us a lot of no guard buffer room in the later stages of the game. As for other options to run in this deck, to be completely honest, I don't think you want to deviate too much from mono 7Cs. Yes, adding Colombard and Grease Shades will help consistently a lot, but that one turn where you're riding either of these and not a 7C's name is going to be your opponent's easiest no guard of their life. And Night Haze sort of fulfills the role of getting Night Mist into the hand, or Nightrunner can fetch any other missing pieces as well. I wanted to throw in King Serpent to be cute and include it for the sake of Core's philosophy, but even that would be disingenuous and would only ever go off through Nightcrow, which we aren't even maxed out on, and as stated before, Counterblast is the least of this deck's worries. As for some concluding statements, I'm pretty sure Nightrow's Betty Good Stuff is still the way to go for Grand Blue. The speed and selectivity of that deck is unmatched in Grand Blue itself, so while 7C's got some good support here, I think the hyperfixation on hitting 6 treasures as soon as possible cuts you off of a lot of the good generic cards that are available that Nightrose and Betty have access to. Nonetheless, I appreciate the existence of Cum Dragon being a very big boy that will generally get us a treasure each time it hits to make the deck's game plan more consistent. In any case, that's it from me for this episode of Clan Collection Cores. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this and leave a comment down below because every little bit helps the channel. This has been Toku from YellowCard Vanguard. Toku out.